Introduction to Blender 2.8 Transform, Orientation, and Pivot Points. There are several important controls in the center of the header in the 3D viewport that are important when transforming objects or meshes. Starting off with the Transform Orientations drop-down menu. There are 6 options with the cursor being added in 2.8. The global transform orientation is based on the world origin, with a set value for what direction X, Y, and Z represents. The local transform orientation changes the values based on the rotation of the object. If you apply the object's rotation, then it will be the same as the global transform orientation. The normal transform orientation is mainly useful in edit mode and is based on the orientation of the selected face, or the combined orientation of the selected faces, as long as the pivot point is not set to be the active element. In all honesty, I have never used the gimbal transform orientation, and I looked at how others have described it. When you have anything selected, you will have the ability to choose the rotation mode in the Object tab of the Properties editor. There are 8 different options, though in reality, there are only 3 distinct options. The options include axis angle, XYZ, and the XYZ is the default. And you can also make objects rotate like an armature bone. The gimbal transform orientation changes depending on what mode you choose, and is somewhat based on the orientation of the selected object and its offset compared to the global transform orientation. The view transform orientation is based on the angle that you are currently viewing the 3D editor, with the Z-axis being aligned with your view angle, the X-axis making a horizontal line across your viewing angle, and the Y-axis making a vertical line across your viewing angle. The last transform orientation is the cursor transform orientation, and it is based on the rotation values of the 3D cursor. The pivot point changes the center point of a selection's rotation and scale. There are 5 options that are mutually exclusive to each other, and 1 option that can be enabled or disabled. Bounding boxes come from some of the earliest versions of Blender. A bounding box completely encompasses an object, and its shape will dynamically change while you are editing the object. The center of the bounding box can be used as a pivot point. The 3D cursor is where objects are placed, and when you add them to a scene, you can also use the 3D cursor as the pivot point when rotating and scaling objects. When you use the individual origins pivot point, every object selected will be scaled or rotated according to their individual origin points. When you use the median pivot point, the center of the selection will be used as the pivot point. You can select multiple objects or multiple aspects of an object when you are in edit mode. The last element or object you select is considered the active element, and everything else is considered selected. When you use the active element pivot point, the active element will be used as the center for rotation or scaling. The only origins pivot point does not work in edit mode. However, it can be used to align and rotate objects in relation to the selected pivot point without affecting the mesh. The button that looks like a magnet will enable or disable snapping during transform. There are 5 different snapping options, and you can select multiple of them at the same time, with the first one being an incremental value, and the other 4 being different aspects of a mesh. You can choose to change the target, closest, center, median, or active. You can align rotation to target, project from individual elements, and consider objects as a whole when finding the volume center. You can choose to have snapping effect move, rotate, or scale transformations, or you can disable any one of the 3. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is proportional editing. Proportional editing can be turned on or off and can be used to make some very interesting objects very quickly. It can be also used to make tedious corrections on a mesh easier and less time-consuming. This was a long topic, and if you are still here, I'd like to thank you for watching the whole video, and happy animating.